Commander Lucas Hayes stood in the transport ship and looked at the palace below him. The building was massive, made of white stone that shined in the light of the alien sun. He had been flying for 3 weeks to get here, and his stomach felt tight with fear. Lucas was a tall man with dark hair and a steady face. He wore the uniform of the Earth Defense Force, and his hands were clean but calloused from years of work. He had not wanted this job, but nobody else was ready to do it. The Zethrians had taken 17 star systems, and they were coming for Earth next. The transport landed hard on the palace landing pad. Lucas gathered his papers and took a deep breath. He stepped out into the hot air of the alien planet. Tall guards stood waiting for him. They were not human. Their skin was blue, and they had 4 arms. Their eyes were black and empty like the space between stars. One guard spoke in a language that Lucas did not know, but a small device in his ear translated the words. The guard said, "You are the human delegate. Come with us." Lucas followed the guards through wide hallways. The palace was cold and clean. Everything was made of the same white stone. There were no pictures on the walls, no decorations, nothing that showed joy or color. Lucas felt smaller and smaller as he walked. They reached a huge door. The guard stopped and told Lucas to wait. The door opened slowly, and Lucas heard the sound of many people talking. He stepped inside and saw the throne room. It was the biggest room he had ever seen. The ceiling was so high that Lucas could barely see it. At the far end of the room sat the queen on a throne made of black metal. She was tall and powerful. Her skin was darker blue than the guards, and her eyes were sharp and cold. Her name was Seraphina, and she had conquered more worlds than any leader in history. Around the queen stood her council members and guards. They all looked at Lucas with no interest. To them, he was not a real visitor. He was nothing. Lucas walked across the long floor toward the queen. His footsteps made echoes that bounced off the walls. He felt every eye in the room looking at him. When he reached the middle of the room, he stopped and bowed slightly, the way he had been told to do. Queen Seraphina did not move. She watched Lucas with the same look a person gives to an insect. She said something in her language, and the translator in Lucas's ear spoke the words, "The human finally arrives. Let us see if your kind has anything worth our time." Lucas spoke carefully. "Your Majesty, I am Commander Lucas Hayes. I come to speak for Earth and its colonies. We want to find a way to live together with the Zethrian Empire. We do not want war." The queen leaned forward slightly. "War? There would be no war. Your species is too weak to fight us. We have ships that can destroy your entire world from orbit. We have weapons you do not even understand. There would only be surrender." The council members around the throne made sounds like they were laughing. Lucas felt heat in his face, but he stayed calm. He said, "The people of Earth have never surrendered, Your Majesty. We have survived hard times that would have killed other species. We can be valuable partners to your empire if you give us the chance." The queen's expression did not change. She said, "I will tell you what will happen. Your colonies will give us their resources. They will give us their labor. They will obey our laws and serve our purposes. In return, we will allow them to exist. This is more generous than we offer most species we conquer. But Your Majesty," Lucas said, "we cannot accept those terms. Our people value freedom. We cannot." The queen raised her hand, and Lucas had to stop speaking. She said, "You are in no position to refuse. I am giving you time to accept what is happening. In one of our days, I will expect your answer. If you refuse, I will order the destruction of your colonies. The choice is yours, Commander Hayes. Accept life as servants or see your people die." The queen looked away from Lucas. To her, he was no longer important. He was decided. The guards moved toward Lucas to take him away. But then something unexpected happened. A door to the side of the throne opened, and a young female Zethrian entered the room. She was smaller than the queen, and her skin was a lighter blue. She had a curious expression on her face, not cold like the others. This was Princess Lydia, the queen's daughter. She looked at Lucas with real interest. She did not look at him the way the others did. She looked at him like he was a person, not a thing to be conquered. For just a moment, Lucas saw something in the princess's eyes that gave him hope. She saw him. She really saw him. And in that moment, Lucas realized that the future of humanity might not be decided by the queen at all. The guards took Lucas away from the throne room. As they led him out, he turned his head back and saw the princess still watching him. She was not smiling, but there was something in her face that was not cold. There was something that was almost kind. Lucas was taken to a room in the palace. It was not a prison, but it was not comfortable either. He had high walls and one small window that showed only the palace gardens outside. He sat on the bed and thought about what had just happened. The queen had given him an impossible choice: accept slavery or watch his people die. There seemed to be no way out. But the princess had looked at him with something like respect. Maybe there was another path that Lucas had not seen yet. Lucas lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in this massive palace, there was a way to save Earth. He had to find it before the queen's deadline came. Outside, the alien sun began to set, and the palace grew dark. Lucas closed his eyes and tried to rest, knowing that the next few days would decide the fate of his entire world. The next morning, a guard came to Lucas's room and told him he could walk in the palace gardens. The guard said it was an order from the queen. Lucas did not understand why the queen would allow this, but he was grateful. He needed to think, and walking would help him clear his mind. The gardens were beautiful in a strange way. The plants were not like anything on Earth. They had colors that Lucas had never seen before. Some of them were purple, and some were silver. The flowers glowed slightly in the bright daylight. Everything was ordered and perfect, like the rest of the palace. Lucas walked along a stone path and tried to think of a plan. He had less than one full day left to give the queen his answer. If he said yes to slavery, his people would lose everything. If he said no, they would die. Neither choice was acceptable, but one of them had to be made. He heard a sound behind him and turned to see Princess Lydia standing near a group of glowing flowers. She was alone, without guards. She wore a long dress of light blue material that matched her skin. In her hands, she held several of the silver flowers. "Commander Hayes," she said. Her voice was not hard like her mother's. It was soft but strong. "I am Princess Lydia. I wanted to speak with you away from my mother's throne room." Lucas was surprised. He did not know what to say. He bowed and said, "Your Highness, I am honored to meet you." The princess smiled. It was the first real smile Lucas had seen on any Zethrian face. She said, "Do not be so formal. I have studied your people for many years. I have read about your history, your wars, your art, your families. I wanted to meet you and ask you questions that my mother would not allow." They walked together through the gardens. The princess asked Lucas about Earth. She wanted to know about the mountains and the oceans. She wanted to know about human families and how people live together. She asked him about his own family. Lucas told her about his parents, who had taught him to never give up. He told her about his younger sister, who worked as a doctor on the colony. He told her about the small house where he grew up, surrounded by trees and open sky. He spoke about the beauty of Earth and the fierce pride that humans had for their world. Princess Lydia listened to every word. She did not look bored or distracted. She looked at Lucas like his words were the most important thing she had ever heard. "My mother believes that your species is weak," the princess said. "She has conquered 17 worlds, and she believes that strength comes only from weapons and power. But I have studied your history, and I see something different. I see a species that survived terrible conditions. I see people who continued to live and create and love even when everything was against them." Lucas felt hope growing inside his chest. He said, "Your Highness, does your mother listen to your opinion?" The princess looked down at the flowers in her hands. She said, "My mother respects strength and order. She built an empire through will and dominance. She does not understand other ways of thinking. When I try to tell her about human resilience or the beauty of human diversity, she says these things are weakness. She says that only conquest and control matter." "But you do not believe that," Lucas said. "No," the princess said. "I do not. I believe the empire is slowing down. We conquer more worlds, but the people on those worlds become unhappy or rebellious. Species that my mother thought were weak show strength in unexpected ways. I think my mother's way is ending, but she does not know it yet." They came to a quiet corner of the garden where a fountain made of black stone stood. The water that came from the fountain was clear and cold. The princess sat on the edge of the fountain and asked Lucas to sit beside her. "I have a question," she said. "Do you think humanity could be an ally to the Zethrian Empire instead of a subject people?" Lucas thought carefully before he answered. He said, "Yes, Your Highness. Humans work well with other species when they are treated with respect. We are creative and determined. We are willing to help others if we are not forced. But we cannot accept slavery. It is against everything that our species believes in." The princess nodded slowly. She said, "I thought so. That is why I wanted to speak with you. I am going to tell my mother something that I have never told her before. But I need to know that you will tell me the truth. Are you worthy of my help?" Lucas looked into the princess's eyes. He saw that she was serious and brave. He said, "I promise you, Your Highness, I will never lie to you. My people are worthy of life and freedom. That is the truth." A guard appeared at the entrance to the garden and called out to the princess. The time for talking was ending. The princess stood up quickly. She reached out and took Lucas's hand. Her touch was warm and strong. "Tomorrow," she said, "when my mother asks for your answer, remember that there are Zethrians who do not agree with the path of conquest. Remember that you are not alone." She released his hand and walked away through the gardens. Lucas stood by the fountain and watched her go. For the first time since he arrived at the palace, he felt like the situation was not completely hopeless. The sun was getting lower in the sky. Lucas walked back to his room, but he did not feel afraid anymore. The princess had given him something more valuable than weapons or strategy. She had given him belief. She believed that a different future was possible. He lay on his bed and thought about what the princess had said. She wanted to help him. She wanted to show her mother that human and Zethrian could work together. But that path was dangerous for her. If the queen found out that her daughter was helping the human, there could be serious consequences. Lucas made a decision. Tomorrow, when he stood before the queen, he would speak the truth. He would refuse slavery, but he would also propose something new. He would offer an alliance between humans and Zethrians. If the princess believed it was possible, then Lucas would make his mother see it too. Outside his window, the alien stars began to appear in the night sky. Lucas felt nervous and hopeful at the same time. Everything would change tomorrow. Nothing would ever be the same. The guards came for Lucas early in the morning. They did not speak to him. They simply appeared at his door and gestured for him to follow. Lucas knew that the time had come. The queen was ready for his answer. He wore his uniform and tried to look calm, but his heart was beating very fast. He had decided what he would say. but he did not know if the words would be enough. The Queen had the power to destroy everything he loved. All the words in the galaxy could not change that fact. The walk to the throne room seemed longer this time. Lucas noticed details that he had missed before. He saw paintings on some of the walls that showed Zethrian military victories. He saw statues of past queens and kings, all with hard expressions and cold eyes. This empire was built on conquest and power. There was no room for weakness or compassion. The throne room was full again. The Queen sat on her throne, and her council members stood around her. The guards took positions along the walls. The doors closed behind Lucas with a heavy sound. Lucas walked to the center of the room. The Queen looked down at him and said, "You have had time to think, Commander Hayes. What is your answer? Does humanity accept the terms of the Zethrian Empire?" Lucas took a breath. He said, "Your Majesty, I cannot accept those terms." The throne room became completely silent. Nobody moved. The Queen's expression did not change, but Lucas saw her shoulders tighten slightly. She said, "Explain yourself." Lucas spoke clearly and without fear. He said, "Your Majesty, humans come from a world that is harsh and dangerous. We have ice ages that freeze our world. We have diseases that kill thousands. We have natural disasters that destroy cities. Every day on Earth is a fight for survival. This has made us strong in ways that other species do not understand." He continued, "Throughout our history, humans have refused to accept defeat. We have fought against impossible odds. We have survived wars, plagues, and suffering that would have destroyed weaker species. We have built civilizations that celebrate art, music, science, and love. We are a people who do not surrender easily." The Queen leaned forward on her throne. She said, "Your strength means nothing. My weapons are superior. My ships can reach your colonies in days and destroy them in moments. You have no choice but to accept slavery or die." "I understand that you have superior weapons," Lucas said. "But I also understand that the Zethrian Empire rules 17 worlds, and many of those worlds have populations that are unhappy. Many of them rebel or resist your control. A species that refuses to surrender, even when facing superior weapons, is not weak. Such a species is dangerous." The council members began to speak to each other. Lucas could see that his words had disturbed them. The Queen raised her hand, and everyone became silent again. "You are speaking dangerous words, Commander," the Queen said. "You are suggesting that I should fear humanity. That is foolish." "I am not suggesting fear," Lucas said. "I am suggesting respect. Humans are not easy to control through force. We are easy to control through respect and fairness. If you treat us as allies, we will work hard to help your empire. If you treat us as slaves, we will resist forever. The choice is yours, Your Majesty." The Queen stood up from her throne. She was very angry now. Her voice became loud and hard. She said, "You dare to negotiate with me? You dare to tell me what I should do? I will show you the price of human arrogance." She turned to her guards and said, "Prepare the fleet. I want every human colony destroyed. I want their worlds burned. Let this be a lesson to any species that dares to refuse the Zethrian Empire. Execute this human immediately. Take his body back to Earth so they understand what happens to those who resist." The guards moved forward. Lucas felt fear, but he also felt clear. He had made his choice, and he would not take it back. He had spoken the truth, and the truth was all that he had. But then the door beside the throne opened. Princess Lydia rushed into the room. She was not walking slowly or carefully. She was running. Her face was filled with anger and determination. She ran between her mother and Lucas. She stood directly in front of the Queen, her arms spread wide to protect the human. The guards stopped moving. "Mother, the princess said, and her voice was loud and strong. "You will not do this. I will not allow it." The queen stared at her daughter in shock. In all of Lydia's life, she had never defied her mother publicly. She had never challenged the queen's orders in front of the entire court. "Move aside," the queen said. But her voice was less certain now. "No," Princess Lydia said. "I will not move. And I will tell you why. You are wrong about humans. You are wrong about Commander Hayes. And you are wrong about the way you have built this empire." The court became very quiet. Everyone was shocked at what the princess was saying. Lydia continued, "If you kill this human, I will tell every world in your empire the truth. I will tell them that the queen fears a species she thinks is weak. I will tell them that you are so uncertain about your power that you must destroy people who refuse to obey you. I will tell them that you see strength in your daughter, and that same strength has shown me that humans are not weak. And if you kill Commander Hayes, I will spend my life telling everyone that their queen is afraid of humans." The queen's face became very dark. She said, "You would betray your own mother for this alien?" "I would tell the truth for him," the princess said, "because he is willing to die for his people. Because he speaks honestly, even when it is dangerous. Because humanity is worthy of respect. And because I believe that the future of the Zethrian Empire depends on cooperation, not conquest." The princess turned slightly and looked at Lucas. Then she did something that no one in the throne room expected. She smiled at him. It was a real smile, warm and genuine. She reached out and took his hand firmly in hers. Then she pulled him toward her and held him. Her arms wrapped around him, and she held him tight. The entire palace seemed to freeze in that moment. The queen did not move. The guards did not move. The council members did not breathe. In that one moment, everything changed. The princess was showing the entire court that she did not fear the human. She was showing them that she trusted him and cared for him. She was showing them that humans were worthy of affection and respect. The guards lowered their weapons slowly. The council members looked at each other. The queen remained still on her throne, watching her daughter hold the human delegate in her arms. In that frozen moment, the future of two species hung in balance. Everything that would happen next depended on what the queen would do. Time seemed to stop. Nobody in the throne room moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the quiet breathing of the people standing there. The world had paused, waiting to see what would happen next. Lucas felt the princess's arms around him. It was strange and comforting at the same time. He had not expected this moment. He had expected to die. Instead, he was being held by the queen's own daughter in front of the entire court. The guards stood with their weapons, lowered but not fully dropped. They watched their princess hold the human and waited for the queen's command. But the command did not come. Queen Seraphina sat very still on her throne, watching her daughter and the human dot around the room. Other things were changing. The guards began to look at each other. They looked at the princess, who was not afraid of Lucas. If she was not afraid, and she was the highest noble in the empire, then maybe humans were not the threat they had been told. Maybe everything they had learned about human weakness was wrong. One of the guards whispered something to the guard standing next to him. Other guards began to whisper among themselves. The message spread silently through the room. The princess trusts him. The princess holds him like he is someone important. Maybe he's not our enemy. The council members also began to change their thinking. They looked at the princess with new understanding. She had studied humans carefully. She had formed her own opinions. She was not following her mother's commands blindly. She was thinking for herself and making her own choices. These council members had worked under the queen for many years. They knew that she valued strength and courage. They also knew that the princess had those qualities too. If the queen had raised a daughter who was brave enough to defy her in front of the entire court, then perhaps the queen had taught her daughter something that the queen herself had forgotten. Lucas slowly released the princess. He looked into her eyes and saw courage and determination there. He saw someone who had risked everything to protect him and to protect the possibility of peace. The princess released him too, but she kept hold of his hand. She turned to face her mother while still holding Lucas's hand. This simple action told everyone in the room something important. The human and the Zethrian royal were connected now. They were not enemies. They were something else entirely. Queen Seraphina stood up from her throne. She was still very powerful, still very commanding. But something had changed in her expression. She looked at her daughter, really looked at her, for the first time since the princess had entered the room. "Lydia," the queen said, and her voice was quieter than before. "You have done something that no one in this court has ever done. You have defied your mother's command. You have put yourself between me and my will. Explain to me why." The princess did not look afraid. She said, "Because you are wrong about humans, and because you taught me to be strong and to think for myself. You taught me that a true leader makes decisions based on understanding, not just on power. I am following your teachings, mother, but I am following them in a different direction than you expected." The queen descended from her throne and walked toward her daughter and Lucas. Everyone in the room tensed. They did not know what she would do. They did not know if this would lead to violence or to something else. But the queen did not attack. She stopped in front of her daughter and looked at the human. She studied Lucas's face carefully. She looked at his uniform, his bearing, his eyes. She looked at the way he stood beside her daughter, neither confident nor afraid. "Just honest," the queen said. "The human has courage. I can see that. But courage alone does not make a good ally. I need to understand what he offers to my empire." One of the council members stepped forward. This was Lord Vex, the oldest and most respected member of the Queen's Council. He had served 3 previous queens and had seen many wars and many conquests. He said, "Your Majesty, if I may speak." The Queen gestured for him to continue. Lord Vex said, "I have watched this human since he entered the throne room. When you threatened his world, he did not beg or cry. When you prepared to execute him, he did not run or hide. He spoke truth even when it was dangerous. And he has inspired your own daughter to stand against you with courage that rivals your own. This is not the behavior of a weak species, Your Majesty. This is the behavior of people who understand something about strength that we may have forgotten." The Queen listened to her oldest advisor. She said nothing for a long moment. Then she turned back to Lucas and asked, "What would you offer to the Zethrian Empire if I allowed your people to remain free?" Lucas took a deep breath. This was the most important moment of his entire life. His answer would decide the fate of Earth. He said, "Your Majesty, I offer something that superior weapons cannot buy. I offer loyalty based on respect, not fear. I offer creativity and innovation that comes from a species used to solving impossible problems. I offer the perspective of a people who have survived through cooperation and community, not just through power. And most importantly, I offer your daughter a future where her beliefs about compassion and justice are valued instead of seen as weakness." The Queen looked at her daughter again. She saw that the princess was smiling, not with arrogance, but with hope. She saw that her daughter believed in this human and in the possibility of a different kind of empire. The Queen made a decision. She raised her hand and addressed the entire court. She said, "Let it be known that the Zethrian Empire recognizes humanity as an allied species. From this moment, humans will have the same protections and the same rights as any Zethrian. We will form a partnership based on respect and mutual benefit, not conquest." The throne room erupted in sound. Guards stood at attention. Council members spoke among themselves with excitement and uncertainty. The news would spread through the palace quickly. The news would reach the other worlds of the empire just as fast. Everything had changed because of one moment. Everything had changed because the princess smiled and held the human tight. In that frozen instant, the queen had learned what her daughter already knew. Humanity was worthy of respect. Outside the throne room, guards began to make preparations. The queen's order to destroy Earth's colonies was cancelled. New messages were prepared to send to all corners of the Zethrian Empire. The alliance between humans and Zethrians was beginning. 3 days after the events in the throne room, Lucas stood on a balcony of the palace and looked out at the city below. The city was built with tall towers of white and silver stone. Ships moved through the sky in organized patterns. Everything was ordered and precise, just like the Zethrian people themselves. But now things were changing. Messages had been sent to all parts of the empire. The humans of Earth were no longer enemies. They were allies. They were partners. Princess Lydia joined Lucas on the balcony. She wore a formal dress of deep blue material that showed her high rank in the empire. But she moved with ease, not with the stiff formality that Lucas had seen from other Zethrians. She had a different way of carrying herself, a way that showed both strength and gentleness. "My mother wants to meet with you again," the princess said. "But this time, it will not be a confrontation. She wants to discuss the terms of the alliance. She wants to know what humanity needs from the Zethrian Empire." Lucas said, "What changed her mind?" "I know you stood up to her, but I did not think that alone would be enough to make the queen change her entire approach to conquest." The princess looked out at the city. She said, "My mother is a very intelligent person. She understood my argument logically, but she also understood something on a deeper level. She realized that she had raised a daughter who valued compassion and justice more than power and dominance. She understood that if those values were important enough to me to defy her, then those values must have some real worth. And she understood that a daughter who had such strength of character would never accept a life based on slavery and conquest." "So she changed for you," Lucas said. "No," the princess said. "She changed because she finally understood that there is a strength in compassion and a power in justice. That is what you showed her, Commander Hayes. You showed her that a weak species, in her eyes, was actually strong enough to refuse slavery and die for their freedom. That is a kind of strength that all the weapons in the galaxy cannot defeat." That afternoon, Lucas met with the Queen again. But this time, the throne room felt different. The Queen sat on her throne, but she seemed less distant. She asked Lucas about human needs and human dreams. She asked about Earth's resources and what the humans could contribute to the Zethrian economy. Lucas spoke honestly about humanity's situation. Earth was a small world, but it had strong people. Humans could not match Zethrian weapons, but humans could create new ideas and new solutions to old problems. Humans understood survival in ways that other species did not. The Queen listened carefully. She said, "I will send scientists and traders to Earth. I will establish a real alliance, not a false one. Humans will help us understand new ways of thinking. The Zethrian Empire will provide technology and protection. This will be a true partnership." "Thank you, Your Majesty," Lucas said. "My people will not disappoint you." The Queen said, "I believe that to be true. My daughter believes it, and her judgment has proven to be correct." Over the next weeks, things moved quickly. Delegations from across the Zethrian Empire began to arrive at the palace. They wanted to see the human who had changed everything. They wanted to understand why the Queen had abandoned the path of conquest. When the delegations arrived, they saw something surprising. They saw the princess walking beside the human. They saw them talking together, laughing together, showing respect for each other. If the princess trusted the human, then the other Zethrians began to trust them too. News traveled fast. Within months, the story had reached every corner of the Zethrian Empire. The story was told and retold in different ways. Some told it as a tale of human courage. Some told it as a tale of the princess's wisdom. Some told it as a tale of the queen's growth. But all of them told the same basic truth. One human had changed the course of history. Ships were sent to Earth. They carried technology and supplies. They carried messages of peace and partnership. The Zethrian Empire, which had been a force of conquest, had become something new. It had become a true alliance of different species working together. Lucas eventually left the palace to return to Earth, but before he left, the Queen herself escorted him to the transport ship. This was a rare honor. It showed all of Zethria that the Queen respected the human delegate. At the transport, Princess Lydia said goodbye to Lucas. She embraced him, not hiding the gesture from anyone. She said, "You showed courage when most would have given up. You spoke truth when it was easier to lie. You believed in a future that no one else could see. That is what humanity will be remembered for." Lucas said, "I could not have done any of this without you. You took the first step. You showed your mother that I was worthy of respect." "I did not make you worthy," the princess said. "You were always worthy. I simply helped others see what was already true." As Lucas's transport rose from the palace landing pad, he looked down at the city below. He saw the princess watching him leave, standing tall and proud. He knew that the alliance would face challenges. He knew that there would be difficulties ahead. But he also knew that something fundamental had changed. Two very different species had found a way to respect each other. A queen had learned that true strength comes not from conquest, but from justice. A princess had learned that compassion was more powerful than weapons. Back on Earth, the news spread quickly. Humans had negotiated peace with the Zethrian Empire. Humans had earned the respect of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Humans were no longer weak creatures to be conquered. They were partners in building a new kind of future. In the history records of the Zethrian Empire, there is a date that marks the beginning of a new era. That date is the day when the Queen's daughter smiled and held a human tight in the palace throne room. That was the moment when everything changed. Commander Lucas Hayes became known not for military victories or clever diplomacy alone, but for showing the Zethrian Empire that humanity had something precious to offer. He became known as the human who changed an empire through courage and truth. And Princess Lydia became known as the bridge builder, who showed her entire civilization that strength and compassion could exist together. She became a symbol of a new kind of Zethrian, one who understood the future belonged to those who could cooperate and respect others. Years passed. The alliance between humans and Zethrians grew strong. They solved problems together. They created new technology together. They built a future together. And at the center of this new future was the memory of a moment in a frozen palace. The moment when a princess smiled. The moment when a queen learned. The moment when everything changed. That moment became a legend. It was told to children in schools. It was written in history books. It was celebrated in ceremonies across multiple worlds. Because that moment showed that even the most impossible situations can be changed by courage and compassion. And it all began because one human was willing to stand up and speak the truth, even when facing impossible odds.